So, Namaskaram all.
Means the easy flow of the water will not be there. It will stay back over there. So automatically, the moisture particle will be continuously stopping. It can cause so the exercise.
Right. So, we will start our session. Chaturmukha Samarambham Vagbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ragadirogan Sadadanushaktan Asheshakaya Prasradan Asheshan Avsukya Moha Aradidan Jakhana Yo Purva Vaityaya Namostu Tasmai. So, in our last session, which of course 2 weeks back, there were some unavoidable delays in the sessions. Sorry for that. We concluded our last session with a question actually. And that question was, is it logical to consider doshas as similar to any other karyadravya? That was the question. And the principal points that we raised in that regard was, any karyadravya, even though they are named as Parthiva, Apya, Agneya, etc., that is based on some sort of a Bhuyasa Vipadesha Nyayam. All of them are Panjabhautika. And they are all evolved out of the Sankhada of all the Bhutas, binding together of the Bhutas. And hence every dravya contains, each dravya contains all the Bhutas. That is the case of any Karya dravya. And we asked the question, can this be the case with the Tridoshas? Specifically, we asked, does Vayu contain Prithvi, Jala and Agni in it? And does Kabha contain Agni, Vayu and Akasha in it? And so on. And I mentioned that, okay, there is a statement by Vagbhada that Panjabhudatmagatvevi yat Taijasa Gunodayad about the Pajakapitta. And I made a comment that I cannot assimilate it with all the respect and my obligations to Acharya Vagbhada. I find it very difficult to assimilate, and then I requested you all to think deeply about this point. Now, I should explain why it was mentioned like that, what is the logic behind it, and why it is important. So I was mentioning that Vayu as a dosha does not have Prithvi, Jala and Agni in it. And same is the case with other doshas. I made this statement because doshas cannot be considered as karyadrivyas. I know that this is a contradictory statement, or even sometimes I have mentioned earlier that doshas are drivyas. They are made up of Panchabhutas. So, in the first look, there is a Purvapara Vairudhyam. It is true. But we say that the doshas are Panchabhautika. It is meant more like an elementary understanding statement. When we understand doshas from a different but more precise perspective, I think I should be more precise in the points which are presented. Controversial statement. Especially the other day, there was a question that, okay, the Drava nature of Pitta. So when there is a Pitta is Drava, how can say that? How can you say that, or how can one say that there is no Jala in it? I can understand that point. But I think before coming to that, I should present my case. And I'm extremely sorry that I will be churning the same point again and again. Because that is essential for a proper understanding of the concept. See, doshas are three agencies working in the Sharira. Then what is an agency? We have already explained this. An agency is an entity, a thing that acts to produce a particular result, or otherwise an agency is an action or intervention producing a particular effect. So that way, doshas are three agencies working within the Sharira, and each one of them produces specific actions or set of actions which are essential for maintaining the normal functional integrity of Sharira. And each one of these agencies has a specific configuration. Each agency behaves in a specific manner. But when I say that they are agencies working in the Sharira, that statement by any means does not undervalue the importance of doshas. So we need not get upset. We are undervaluing the dosha siddhanta. This is against the basic or the core values of the Shastra. We need not get upset. This statement does not undervalue the importance of doshas. On the other side, it is an important point in the understanding of dosha siddhanta. In the language of Bhudas, Prithvi tends to bind with Jala and vice versa. Means Jala tends to bind with the Prithvi. Agni manifests alone. And Vayu binds with Akasha and vice versa. Akasha binds with Vayu. This is an important internal arrangement of Bhutas in the Sharira. These Bhutas, again, sorry for repeating the point again and again, repeating the entire journey again and again around one point. These Bhutas are present in the Rasa Sanchaya Sneha Sanchaya, Kleda Sanchaya of the Sharira. And they are readily available for making of the dhadus. Apart from making these dhadus, many other activities are happening in the body continuously. Many interventions are happening within. And for these activities and interventions, the three agencies operate. And we have seen that all these operations, all these interventions are coming ultimately under three categories. All these things we have seen earlier. And these three agencies establish their identity by means of specific organization of the bhutas within. That is what we are talking about repeatedly. It is an internal arrangement. This organization is essential because they are assigned with the specific functions. The activities are not interchangeable. One cannot substitute, one cannot replace the other. So they are well defined. So for well-defined functions, well-defined operations, you need well-defined configurations. So these three agencies are nothing but specific internal arrangement of bhutas within the rasa sanchaya, within the sneha sanchaya, within the kleda sanchaya, which is omnipresent, present everywhere in the body. When you look at the matrix, when you look at the bhutas, all of them are present in the matrix. Guru sthula sthira gunas of Prithvi. Drava Shida Guru Snigdha Manda Sandra gunas of Jala. Ruksha Tikshna Ushna Vishada Sukshma gunas of Agni. Ruksha Vishada Laghu gunas of Vayu. Sukshma Vishada Laghu gunas of Akasha. All are present in the matrix. Actually, this list is just taken from the Dravyad Vijnaniya. That is not exclusive. There may be many other to add. We take them all for granted. The point is, there are all the five bhutas present in the matrix, which are processed in a peculiar manner as part of that Pachana Parinama. We have seen that there were different types, different levels of Agnis operating for that. Jadhara Agni at one point, and at this point of discussion, Bhuda Agnis also. Panchahara Gunan Swan Swan Parthivadin Pajantyanu. So you have seen them. These bhudas are used for building the dhadus and thus the sharira. But apart from this structural setting, just making the dhadus, why they should be made? Why they should be made? There are many activities and interventions required to happen inside in order to sustain. For that to happen, these bhudas organize into three agencies within the Sharira, within the Sneha Sanchaya. So it will be a very, very important, very fine, very essential visual exercise or imagination. So these Bhutas organize into three agencies with well-defined characteristics: Prithvi plus Jala, Agni, and Vayu plus Akasha. They are called doshas. I know that I am repeating this overwhelmingly, but I can't help doing so. I already mentioned that an agency is an entity or a thing that acts to produce a particular result, or an agency is an action or intervention producing a particular effect. So doshas are agencies that way. They are not separate karya dravyas. They are not separate karya dravyas. They represent an internal arrangement or organization. That is purely a working arrangement within. And as mentioned earlier, this happens only in the presence of life. This happens only in the presence of life. So coming back to the point, in this working arrangement, when we consider an agency called Vayu or Vata, in its fundamental format, there is no role for Prithvi, Jala, or Agni in it. There is no role for Prithvi, Jala, or Agni in it. Same will be the case with Pitta. When we consider Pitta, an agency in its fundamental format, there is no role for Prithvi, Jala, or Vayu and Akasha in it. Same is the case with Kapha. When we consider Kapha as an agency in its fundamental format, there is no role for Agni, Vayu, and Akasha in it. So that way, they are not Karyadravyas. They are not Karyadravyas. That is why I propose that we cannot expect the participation of any Bhutas in a dosha other than the assigned ones, the highlighted ones. This is very important. But having said this, we should not mistake that these three agencies are independent, autonomous entities. They have got some sort of an autonomy, some level of autonomy, of course, but they are the components of a single system. They help each other. They are complementary to one another. Still, they demonstrate the basic instinct. They retain the basic instinct to organize into three groups and behave like independent units once they are organized. Again, this is all because of there is a principle called life. This is all because of a principle called life. So as I mentioned earlier, it will be an extraordinary visualization exercise. Now, if you take one particular agency, say for example, Kapha. Kapha can be seen, described as responsible for certain traits in Sharira, like sthirata, snigdhata, sandhibandha, etc. That way, we can assume that Prithvi, Jala, Bhudas are responsible for these functions, are essential for these functions. Similarly, Bhakti, Ushma, Darshanam, etc. can be seen explained as the Pitta traits. That means Agni is responsible for these functions. Utsaha, Uchvasa, Nishwasa, Cheshta, Vega Pravritti. These are all traits attributed to Vata. So we infer that Vayu and Akasha Bhutas are responsible for the delivery of these functions. This is very, very important. Even with this point, curious minds, intelligent minds can come up with n number of new ideas of approaching Sharira, of approaching a clinical situation, and coming up with better prescriptions. I'm not going to that at this point because we have never not reached near that idea, near that stage. But it is there. We are sowing the seeds now itself so that we can reap on a later date. Now, when we consider dhadus, we need to understand some other interesting points. Actually, this is very beautiful narrative, and it is based on this understanding that we really understand ideas which we were not earlier so curious about, like the ashrayi bandha, etc. Body needs all the five bhutas in order to build the dhadus and to sustain. Sharira is panchabhautika. All the dhadus are panchabhautika. And bhutas are the materials with which Sharira is made. This idea is expressed in multiple ways. We have seen that panchabhutatmakam Karyadravyam. Sharira is a Karyadravya. Panchamahabhuta Shariri Samavaya Purushaha. So that Shariri Samavayatvam is very important because that is what I was mentioning earlier. All this happens only in the presence because of a principle called life. Otherwise, there is no question of these activities. There is no question of this sort of a survival. And earlier we have seen Acharyas documenting the contribution of Panchabhutas. Of course, these are overgeneralizations. We have to draw the unsaid areas from what is said. The contribution of Panchabhutas in the making of Sharira. In Sharira Sthana, we find Vakbhada gives it in the most precise and shortest form that tatra ghad ghani dehesmin shrotram shabdo viviktata vadad sparshatva guchvaso vanhe drigrupa paktayah apya jihva rasakledo घ्राण गंधास्थि पार्थिवम तत्र घाद घानी देहेस्मिन् श्रोत्रम शब्दो विविक्तता, a representative portion only. वादाद स्पर्शत्वग उच्छ्वासः वह्नेः दृग्रूप पक्तयः आप्या जिह्वा रस क्लेदः घ्राण गंधास्थि पार्थिवम. And in that discussion, the discussion is concluded with one statement: iti bhutamayo dehaha. Iti bhutamayaha dehaha. So here we find different structures, different faculties, different capabilities, may not be functions, maybe, of Sharira attributed to different bhutas. The idea of doshas, what we were explaining so far, tells us that the bhutas organize themselves to make these structures and faculties functional. And it is an internal arrangement within the system. At one point, if the structures and faculties cease to function, such as when the individual dies, then there can be no more discussion on dhadus possible. Once the individual dies, there is no more discussion on doshas. Now, looking at them from a different angle, doshas reflect different, specific, well-defined currents or movements happening within the kleda, the matrix of sneha. I repeat, doshas reflect different but specific, well-defined currents or movements happening within the kleda. I invite you to go for a visualization of that event within the matrix of sneha. Actually, that matrix or milieu forms a living being's internal environment. So within that internal environment, we visualize, we imagine some currents within. This is an interesting arrangement. It looks like silent and stable from outside, but well-defined currents of doshas are happening inside, which are inbuilt. They are formed within and operate within. They have specific functions assigned. So it is something like an ocean of sneha. We pour more and more sneha into it. Sneha is getting utilized. But in order to facilitate a peculiar, well-defined functional system, once they are poured, they form the sharira, the materials within, the avayavas within, the dhadus within. But meantime, they organize themselves into three currents, three systems, three agencies within. So the materials are used for making something. Meantime, they tend to organize within in a peculiar manner. So two things are happening. Dhadus are made. All dhadus are panjabhautika. But well, within that, there is an inherent tendency for these bhutas to organize into three agencies. So that is so amazing. And the Dhattvagnis are very critical here. And we will be able to visualize this, and then we will be able to make some sense of the Ashraya-Ashrayi relation. I know that I am challenging the capacity of the fellow travelers in this journey, especially those who are bit struggling to bring up with some sort of a visualization exercise. But that is quite amazing to have that sort of a view of a system where there is an ocean of sneha. That sneha is being utilized for making materials within, whereas these within that system, taking that structural integrity of the system for granted, still within the system there are three currents forming, which are the result of the organization of the ingredient materials, the Panchabhutas, into three specific agencies. So each avayava, which is having all the five bhutas, each dhatu, which is having all the five bhutas, still can have some sort of a dominance in terms of the current which is accommodated within that dhatu, accommodated within that avayava. We will not go for avayava at this point, dhadus. So each dhatu is becoming panchabhautika. At the same time, it accommodates certain area of a current. So that is how the entire system is designed. So it's a bit complex idea, but it is an interesting idea. It is an amazing idea. You will be able to solve many previously unsolved issues if you focus on more and more on this concept what we are discussing, and I think we have already covered our time slot, so I'm stopping at this point. Before that, we will see whether there are some ideas which to be discussed. Disturbed audio, sorry for that. I hope I was clear because I was not listening to the chat box earlier. These agencies are formed at the time of conception. Yes. And Kshira Dhinyayam with Narayana Tattva. Okay, that will be beautiful. I think I'm happy to see that new ideas are popping up. All the Sthula Bhutas exist after Panchikarana only. Then how can doshas be only of two bhutas? Yeah, that is the magic. That is the magic. That is what I told earlier, that see, the biggest, most amazing fact is that body is capable of converting ahara to dhatu. So there is a stage of the entire exercise of ahara pachana is actually parinama. So there is a breaking down, segregation, and rebuilding, reassembling. So in that phase of that reassembling, actually the magic happens. And as I mentioned earlier, again, do not think these doshas as karyadravyas. Then only this conflict exists, what Dr. Vijay Lakshmi has raised here. How can they be only two bhutas? They are not karyadravyas with two bhutas, or they are not karyadravyas with one bhuta alone. That is just an internal arrangement. Okay, so thank you so much. I do expect that we will meet next week as well. And till then, we stop here. Thank you so much once again. Bhishajam sadhuvrittanam bhadramagamashalinam abhyasthakarmanam bhadram bhadrabhirashikam. Thank you so much.